Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sports Talk with Anna Grearson. I'm Anna Grearson, the sports editor of the Times-Argus in Barrie, and joining me today on today's program is Brian Gallagher, the general manager of the Vermont Mountaineers. But before we get to talking with Brian, we've got some highlights from CVTsport.net and Carl Parton from not only the Mountaineers, but also some recent action at Thunder Road.
Randy Gagne on the 22 takes over the final spot in the semi, but here comes Clem Despo. Despo plays bumper tag and turns 3 and 4. Caution flag is out. Williams in the 11. Great side-by-side battle right now for the 4-spot double O. Joe dirt tracking off at turn number 2 that time. Oh, come back, Joe. Oh, Matt Potter headed off the top as well. Caution flag is out. 3-1 up the middle. Bedore slams the door. Eric Bedore, oh, sideways off turn 4. White flag is out. Here comes Woodard into 68. There goes Eric Bedore, the number 2 pointman. Big John Lambert in the 2 torn up. Checkers in yellow. Mike Zeiter wins it. Scott Colburn gets second. And how about a big round of applause for Jason Woodard in the 68. The rookie, Kyle Pembroke, around the outside lane of a 27, takes the lead to the back straightaway. Dave Wickham, Mark Norris get together. Norris around in the 22. Oh, Dave Pembroke through the infield, does a little bit of side lane on the backstretch, but Brett Gervais now jumps ahead on the inside of the 11. As they come off turn number 4 to complete lap number 4, it's Brett Gervais. Eric Chase crossed up. Brett Gervais over the top of him. Caution flag is out right now for second as the white flag is set to fly. 1 lap to go. Oh, Brett Gervais gets tagged. Gervais in the 11 into the infield. Black flag will be displayed for the 60 of Derek O'Donnell. Checkered flag is out. Boomer Morris wins it. Brooks Clark gets second. Third will go to G. Paul Sear in the 32.
This team. And a ground ball to third base, picked up by Koska. Long throw over to Vigorolo for the first out. The 2-1 pitch, 2 out. Ground ball to the hole. Grabbed by, whoop, knocked off the second baseman. It's going to be an attempt to score. And here comes the throw home. It's way off the line, gets by the catcher, goes to the backstop. And the batter is now second base. He's end up at third. Here's the throw, and that's way offside. Severino with the pitch, and there's an attempt to steal. Gets by the second baseman. Brett Dennis slides into second base safely. Sox. Taking off for second base, Brad Kaska. The throw down went to the shortstop. Checks the runners. Delivers the 1-2 pitch. And there is a line drive, and it's a gapper. It's going to go to the fence. That's about 347 feet. 2 runs will score. And Thomas Rulis will end up at second with a 2 RBI double. And the fans want the strikeout. And there it is. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The Mountaineers racing out of the dugout to congratulate their pitcher, David Rosenberger, who came on in relief and shut down the opposition.
An outstanding performance there by Rosenberger, indeed, coming into the game there, and only striking out 1 batter in 3 1/3, but only walking 1 and only allowing 1 base runner. So just an outstanding performance. And Rosenberger actually picks up the save in 2 ways. He came in with a 3-runner less lead, and he also pitched 3+ innings holding a lead. So he got the save out there for the Mountaineers. Joey Graziano takes the win, as he was in when the Mountaineers came back for the 3rd time in the game to take the lead. Losing pitcher is Dominic Severino. Norm, what are your
Thanks, Carl. Now for our conversation with Brian. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Thanks, Anna.
Team is off to perhaps its best start in its 11-year history?
Yeah, we've had a great start, and we're 15-7 right now. The team had a 9-game winning streak earlier in the year, then had a couple of losses and went back on a 4-game winning streak. So we've struggled a little bit lately, but mostly it's with the weather. It's very frustrating having a good team in town and then having 3 straight rainouts right now and an off day on top of that. The players are getting a little antsy. They want to play baseball, and it's been tough to sit and watch the rain and pull the tarp so many times this year.
You guys are halfway through your New England Collegiate Baseball League schedule.
Right.
Talk about what's going on with the rest of the league. There's a couple of new teams this year.
Yeah, we have 3 new teams. We've got one in Rhode Island, Ocean State Waves, and they're in South Kingston, Rhode Island, close to Newport. We have another team that's in Plymouth, the Plymouth Pilgrims. Good name, I guess, and again, down in the Massachusetts area. And then we have one team in Saratoga, New York, the Brigade, and they're the first team that we've ever had outside of New England. The league really went back and forth whether or not we were going to go outside of New England, being the New England League. But in the end, we decided, as a group that, we wanted to expand. It was a good market. It was a close commute for some of the northern teams, including Vermont. It was almost the same distance to go to Saratoga as it would be to go to Holyoke. So in a way, it was a good move for us travel-wise, and they've been a good team. They're right behind us in the standings by 3 games, I think, right now. So.
A sign of a good, healthy league.
Yeah, I think so. Expansion, and all the teams are, and actually Ocean State's giving Newport a run for their money, and Newport's always one of those teams that seems to get to the top quickly and stay there, and they're neck and neck with Newport right now, which I like to see. Healthy competition, and it'd be nice to see somebody besides the Gulls in the finals for a change. So.
And this season, not only do we have new teams in the league, but you guys have a new coach. Talk about Coach Brown.
Yeah, it's been a great addition. Joe Brown has almost an 800 winning percentage over the last 10 years at Cortland State, and it's a Division III program, yet he's coached Division I players in summer college baseball for many years, most recently in 2 years in Sanford, Maine. He took the Sanford Mainers, won a championship, and then one other year we beat them in the semifinals to knock them out, and there were 3 one-run games. Either team could have won. We won. We happened to win it on a walk-off. Kurt Smith, blast from the past when he hit, a game-winning hit, and that was back in 2006. So after that 2008 season, Joe Brown actually stepped away from summer college baseball, went back and just worked at Cortland doing camps in the summer. And when we opened up the position, when we knew John Russo couldn't come back, we opened it up, had a ton of applicants nationally. We talked to some people, but in the end, I just called Joe and I'm like, I know you're a good coach and you've coached in this league. You've had great success with college players at all levels, and would you be interested? And we talked for 2 or 3 times over the course of a week, and he said, yeah, I definitely want to get back into summer baseball, and Vermont's a good place to be. I'm hoping he doesn't change his mind after the amount of rain we've had, because, it's been so discouraging. We've tarped the field, I think, 22 different times, either, sometimes multiple times in a day. So it just, that's discouraging. I think that's the only thing that's been a downer this year. So.
And you said you had a lot of applicants. What makes people want to come spend their summers in Vermont?
I think it's a nice place to be. We've got a nice ballpark, good community, very supportive with the sponsors, with the fans, the host families, the volunteers. And I also think the league is attractive too, because a lot of coaches use this as a stepping stone to go on to, different programs. And it worked for John Russo. He went from basically a second assistant when he first came here, and now he's a Division I head coach at Hofstra University. So I think his experience coaching some high Division I players make a Division I program say, hey, if he has success in the New England League in the summer, which is one of the top leagues in the country, then we'll take a chance and hire him as a coach. And he was an assistant then as a head coach at Hofstra. So I think it works well. It's a stepping stone for broadcasters. We've had many broadcasters go on to professional ball, and one's at AAA right now. Some are at single AA. And I think it's just a good way to start your career. So.
In this league, you use wooden bats, but the kids use aluminum bats when they're at their regular teams at school. How much of a difference is that for them? Do they say much about it?
Yeah, it's a big difference, but it's not as much as it used to be. Back when we first started, guys went to aluminum bats, and then the first time they'd swing a wood bat was when they came to Vermont. So it might take them 3 weeks to get used to it. By then, the season's half over. Now it seems like colleges use wooden bats for batting practice a lot, and it helps speed up their swing when they get to an aluminum bat. And the players come in sometimes with 3 or 4 or 5 wooden bats of their own that they choose to use. It helps our budget a little bit too, because we're not supplying each guy with 12 bats that they break in the summer. They break some of their own, then they use ours. And so I think they're more used to it, and they're better hitters because of their using wood at some point. So.
And the Mountaineers are certainly one of our favorite teams to cover, one of the best parts of the summer for sure. And we've had 2 as our athletes of the week, Brad Kaska and Mike Triller. Talk a little bit about those guys and some of the other guys you're really excited about this year.
Yeah, sure. Mike Triller's been, he's a Rutland kid. He is our only Vermonter on the team. We always shoot to try to get Vermonters on the team, but without UVM having a baseball program anymore, getting Division I players from Vermont's a little tougher. But Mike was playing at Clemson, and we talked to them, and he was available, willing to come up, and we were excited to have him. And he's played a good outfield for us this year, and been a good teammate. So it's nice to have him in there, and I'm sure he brings his fans from Rutland to come up. His family comes up and watches him play, so it's a good thing. So.
And last year with Casey Brighton, kind of the same thing. He had a couple of great games.
Yeah, Casey was a kid that went to our baseball camp many years ago, as a 12-year-old kid, and he was here looking up to these Mountaineer players. So it went full circle when he was in school, and he was a local player who was having a good year. We brought him up, and he hit a home run in his first at bat at Montpelier Rec Field, where he went to camp as a kid. So it's kind of a fun story. Billy Brooks was another kid that I had as a middle school student, as well as when I was at the high school. I had him in class there, and we had a roster spot open with one day to fill it, and nobody was really available. And I said, hey, Billy, do you want to get on the roster and pitch if we need somebody? And he threw some innings for us late in the year, and it was good to have a Montpelier kid on the team. So it's been fun. So.
And you look at this roster, and there's some pretty impressive schools that these kids are coming from. Some of them every year come from the College World Series. It takes them a little while to get here because they're doing so well with their college team.
Yeah.
Talk about how Coach Brown, Coach Russo is able to get kids from such big spots.
Yeah, it's a really good system that I think we've set up, and I think most teams are doing this now, where the general manager is spending more time getting their part of the job done, from sponsorship and making sure that the team is run properly, but putting more emphasis on the coaches' recruiting. And I think that's a good thing, because coaches tend to do well talking to each other because they're kind of on the same level. And the coach sometimes will have gone to school with one of the other coaches that he's dealing with, or he's coached against him for years. They have a relationship already. So they can trust each other a little bit. Like if he calls up and said, I really want your best pitchers, and he already knows who his best pitchers are, as opposed to somebody from the outside calling in and maybe not getting their best guys because they send them to a friend of theirs. So Coach Brown's done a great job recruiting this team, and I think has picked up like guys from Louisville and Vanderbilt and St. John's and URI, and some of the kids. We've actually got Dartmouth player this year, Thomas Rulis, who's our shortstop, has been doing really well. Kids from Virginia, Clemson. So we're getting a lot of the top programs, and I think when kids come in from the top programs, they know how to do things the right way. They've been taught by coaches that expect very high expectations, and that's been an easy transition. I think when Coach Brown asks them to do something and do their workouts, they're really serious about it. So.
And one thing that's affecting sports statewide, whether it's the Mountaineers, Thunder Road, is the rain.
Right.
And you have 4 days off this week. You're only planning on having one.
Right.
So talk about the toll that takes on the organization, on the players.
Yeah, we've had board members and volunteers coming in. Like we had the other day, we canceled the game, and that night we went back and worked at the ballpark until about 10 o'clock to take sump pumps to get water off the outfield to make it playable for the next day, and sponges and leaf blowers the whole next day to get it playable. And 5 minutes before opening pitch, the rain came down like I've never seen it. The dugouts filled up. The outfield was absolutely standing water over ankles deep, and the game had to be canceled. After all that work for 2 days, it just washed out in 5 minutes. And then it also rained out for the next day because there's just so much water that wouldn't go down. So that's a big issue. I think we need to figure out how to put some drainage in down there in the outfield. Otherwise, it's a really disappointing season for fans, sponsors, as well as players that are sitting around and not doing baseball, which is what they came here to play. So.
And they've got a finite schedule. They've got to get back for fall ball. Are you running out of rainout days?
Yeah, we're down to like 3 dates that we could possibly use, and it doesn't work unless it happens to be a common date with the other team. So we're scheduling a lot of doubleheaders now, which is taking its toll, especially on pitching going into the playoffs. So it's disappointing, because if you could just play the schedule out with no issues, then obviously that's the best thing you could do, and people would be on certain days rest. But when you start backing up doubleheaders and you've got pitchers going more innings than you want them to, and then getting into the playoffs, it just puts everybody at a disadvantage. So.
And you guys are primed for a pretty good playoff run. You've led the league for most of the season, if not all of it. So.
Yeah, we've been up there. We started the season 0-2, and then we had a lot of players that were late coming in, as you mentioned, from the College World Series. Indiana was in there, and we had a lot of schools that went into the later rounds this year. once those guys came in and they really blended well together and started like winning 9 in a row, which, there were days that they said, hey, we're not going to lose a game this season. I'm like, don't get too cocky here. We've got a long ways to go. And we've lost a few since then, but no, I think we have a really good team. It's just, we just need to play. That's the key.
And you mentioned that the field is certainly taking a beating with the rain, but it looks good. You guys have done over the years a lot of improvements to the field.
Right.
It breaks my heart that we lost the high school baseball state championships there to Centennial, which is still a beautiful facility. But is there something about seeing the high school kids play at Montpelier Rec? Talk about what you guys have done to the field.
Yeah, since the first year, I mean, it was really a field that was pretty run down. The dugouts were all falling in. The lights didn't work. The infield hadn't been done over, in probably 50 years. It was just a dirt infield that turned muddy quickly. So we had to tear out the entire infield, sod it, put in new surface, put in all new lights, build the dugouts, build all the outbuildings that are there for the beverages, ticket booths, souvenir stands, create the plaque wall, build a press box. I mean, it goes on and on. Put a fence up. There was no fence, no foul poles. So all that stuff was put in. Since then, we've put in warning track and double batting cages. So we've just constantly improved the park. And the city owns the property, so if the Mountaineers were to go out tomorrow, the city would still have a great investment, including a $20,000 scoreboard, that was donated by a sponsor. So it's, we've really worked hard to do it, and nobody owns the team, which is, people are surprised at that. It's basically, we have a board of directors with 15 people, and everybody works a full-time job. I'm a teacher. We have people that are lawyers, people that are business people, and everybody does their own job, and then we just kind of bond together for this baseball team and work year-round on it to make it happen. So all the money that goes into the team goes into the field or going into paying our annual bills, and we still have about 5 more years of loans to pay off on the field renovations, and then hopefully at that point we'll start saving towards new renovations. So.
And the players don't get paid.
Right.
They're college players, so they can't, right?
Right. The players don't get paid to play, but they can work at baseball camps, which is another fun thing that we can offer. We have 4 weeks of camps, and we average 60 to 70 kids that come down there every week for 4 weeks, and the one-on-one experience they get with the players learning the game and from the coaching staff, I think is pretty valuable for these kids, as Casey Brighton and Billy Brooks show, and they went on to play college ball after coming to camps. And I'm not saying that's what got them to play college ball, but couldn't have hurt,
Right.
So it was a fun thing. So.
How did the team come about in the first place? And how did Vermont's got a very rich baseball tradition, especially at that field. Was that part of the decision?
Yeah, when back in 2001, Eddie Walbridge first asked me, do you think we could get together and try to put this together? And we put together like 4 or 5 people that really worked hard for about a year, and then it kind of got delayed a little bit because there's a lot of work to do. And then 2002, we went all out and we got accepted into the New England League. And they had a team in every New England state except Vermont. So they were looking to get into Vermont. There weren't many options. Montpelier was one. I think they had an old field in Bennington that the Bennington Bombers played on in the New York League. But there weren't a lot of options, and we had a group in town that was gung-ho to get it to happen. So we went out and did a lot of fundraising for that from 2002 to 2003, and got sponsors on board and really sold it to the community, host families lined up, and then put it all together, and we started doing field renovations in March and had it all done by June. So it was really a very short time frame, and the rain was coming down, and the pictures out there of people working and building dugouts in the pouring rain and the mud, and it didn't look like it was going to happen for a while, but we got it all done in time, and since then it's just grown tremendously as far as the support goes, and been successful on the field. I think we've been to, in the first 10 years, we've been to 4 championship rounds and won 2, so it's been a good run, I think. So.
And Vermont has tried to have not that this is semi-pro, it's college league, but the Mountaineers, or the Frost Thieves, while people loved them, they didn't last very long.
Right.
Semi-pro football is kind of hung around, but they don't get a whole lot of fans.
Right.
What have you guys been doing right to get 1,500, 1,800, 2,000 people there every night of the summer?
I think that the biggest thing is that the time of the year is good. I mean, if you get a nice summer night, we haven't had many of those lately, but if you get nice weather, people like to come out. And even if you're not a baseball fan, it's a community thing where you come out and you see multiple generations out there, grandparents, kids, everybody's there. There's good food. You've got 4 food vendors, restaurants that are running the food business, ice cream, and the entertainment on the field with the mascot between innings. and it's just a fun place to be. And it's a small, contained ballpark. And I like Centennial. I had season tickets there before the Mountaineers started. I used to go up all the time, and it was nice to watch it, but you feel like you're still far away from the game. It's like, it's just a little further apart, and here you're right in the action. The grandstand's pretty close, and the fact that we do baseball camps, we do community service, and players are in the community quite a bit. I think the community really has wrapped their arms around the team and the organization. So.
And for a lot of people, if they pay attention, they're going to see people that they're going to see up in the big leagues down the road. Talk about some of those names that are up on the left field wall.
Sure. Yeah, we've got 6 guys in the major leagues, or have been in the major leagues for the Mountaineers. And Rob Delaney was our first player. He played for the Twins. He's now with the Marlins farm system. AAA, I think he's been up and down several times with a few different organizations. Darren Mastriani, who he started with the Blue Jays, made his major league debut, and then was traded to the Twins. He's been up there, and he was their starting center fielder earlier in the year before he got hurt. Now he's AAA, working his way back. Hopefully he'll be back to the majors soon. AJ Pollock has had an incredible year. He's been with the Diamondbacks 2 years, and that's a first place team, and he's in the top 5 of Rookie of the Year in every poll that comes out. He's in the run. His name's in the running. I don't know if he'll win it, but he's right there. Christian Friedrich has made a major league debut. Was in the 4-man rotation with the Rockies last year before he got hurt. And David Carpenter was with the Cardinals. He actually got traded. It's kind of a funny story. They can't trade a player for a manager, so when the Red Sox went out and got John Farrell, David Carpenter was sent along as a throw-in with John Farrell to the Red Sox, and the Red Sox sent somebody there for David Carpenter, but I think it was kind of to get the right to get John Farrell, and then David Carpenter was traded to the Braves from the Red Sox. Never played for him, but that's kind of an interesting fix. He's been at the major leagues with the Astros, the Braves, and kind of with the Red Sox. Not quite, didn't play. But it's been fun to have those 6 players. They keep in touch is really what's nice about it. They send stuff back that's signed to do at our raffles and keep in touch. And, we've had guys like Steven Strasburg and Andre Ethier and the Papelbons in the league that have played for other teams too. So the NECBL is pretty rich in tradition, and we have about the same amount of players drafted as the Cape League, which is pretty impressive. They've been around 125 years, and we've been around 20 years total from the league standpoint.
And where do kids go from the Mountaineers?
They usually go back to school because they come here from their freshman to junior year, and going into the senior year, and you can be drafted anytime after your junior year of college. So if you come here as a freshman, you usually go back to school. As soon as your junior year comes up, then you're in the draft, and if you get offered enough money or you get drafted high enough, they usually sign. And sometimes we've got some players now that were drafted out of high school but chose to go to college and get a 4-year scholarship, and then hopefully they get back in the draft after the junior year and they get offered more money, but they've got a 4-year education behind them as well. So it's kind of but I think we had 16 players, former players and current players that were going to be here this year drafted. So it's a pretty good number every year. So if you're at the game and you're a host family and you have a player staying with you, there's a pretty good chance at some point that guy could play professional baseball. And not all of them make it to the major leagues, but they go on in single A and double A, and hopefully will get up there and get a chance to live their dream a little bit.
And it's nice having the Red Sox so close. I went to a game against the Rockies a couple weekends ago, and was hoping to see Christian come out in relief, but obviously he didn't. And I also, one of my favorite stories that I've written, not a game story about the Mountaineers, was a David Carpenter feature, and to get a phone call he was with the Astros at the time, to get a phone call from the Astros clubhouse was pretty amazing for us too.
Yeah, and these guys are pretty humble. I know that, they remember the roots. When they were here, they might have been a freshman in college, right out of school. This was like Darren Mastriani, this is his first college at bat. He went to Winthrop, was redshirted. We signed him. He came up here and actually got in the batter's box the first time as a Mountaineer. And he was here for 2 seasons and always had his uniform dirty. He was in the skip costume a couple of times, like in the parade. And he's just a kid that was a fun kid to have around, and now he's playing center field for the Twins. And I actually went to a AA game, and we were playing, the NECBL was playing an exhibition game that year against Team USA at the same stadium at the Fisher Cats in Manchester. So I had a pass, and I went under the tunnel and into the batting cage, and Darren was in there. And he came out, and he didn't see me, and I made a comment like, there's a guy, is that Skip the Woodchuck? And he turned around, and he's like, he didn't expect that. And it was kind of cool to see him play AA ball that night, and make his way up to the big leagues. So he, he's been a fun kid to watch.
And the off season, is there one? And when does it start? When are you going to start preparing for 2014?
As soon as the season gets over, we take about a week off just to get stuff put away down at the field and unwind a little bit, maybe do a little family vacation before I start school in the fall. But then after that, it's basically going right out and starting to renew sponsorship, going after players. Believe it or not, we have to get the players in the fall in order to get the best players. If you wait till January, a lot of the better players are signed with somebody else, another league. There's like over 300 teams in the country in summer college baseball, and so if you don't get at it quickly and get some of those guys that you want, everybody's calling for the same players. So it's tough to. We have to be competitive about that. We were just ranked 7th in the country as far as nationally in the perfect game survey that was out, and we were the highest in the NECBL. Newport, I think, was 14th, and so there were only like 3 Cape teams ahead of us. So I felt pretty good that we're competing with the 8 Cape teams. We were ahead of 5 of them. So at least temporary. I mean, it doesn't mean anything except on paper, but it just tells you, okay, the team is doing well and it's competitive, and we're putting a good product.
It's a place they want to spend their summers.
I think so. And people are looking at that. Coaches, they're saying, well, Vermont is in the top 10 maybe, and that must be a good place to send a player, or send a competitive player. So hopefully winning will help bring more players in to win in the future.
And we have time for one more question before I let you go. What do you think is a reasonable goal for the next couple of weeks, provided that the rain cooperates?
I would like to see us break the team win record for the year, which I believe is 21 regular season wins. We're at 15 right now. It seems very reasonable with half the season left to be able to get 6 wins, and obviously we want to get many more than that. And I'd like to finish in first place this year in the regular season, because if we have the best record in the league as we do now, we'll have home field advantage throughout the whole playoffs. And even if we get to the finals against, say, Newport, or we would have the first game at home and the third game at home, which is a big difference on travel as well as expense. And the players would love to play in front of a crowd in Montpelier as opposed to going to Newport and playing in front of those rabid Cardines Field crew that they bring in there just doing chants all the time. So I think if we could have the best record in the league, I'd be really happy, and obviously winning a championship is our goal every year. So,
and those playoff games give you a good chance to make back some of the gate that might have been lost because of rainouts?
Yeah, because of the rainouts, we've had 2 decent crowds this year that I would consider like our normal crowds, and other nights when it's been raining all the way up until 3 or 4 o'clock, people look out the window, I think, and just say, I'll wait, there's more games down the road, and I'll go then. So when the weather's good, the fans come out all over the place. When the weather's bad, we'll still get an okay crowd. Consider a lot of teams would be happy with the 600-700 people, and we might get that on a rainy night, but other teams might be happy with that on a sunny night. But we've been used to getting big crowds. The players like playing in front of big crowds. So yeah, it will help us make a little bit of that revenue back that's been tough this year with the attendance. So.
Where is Vermont in the attendance?
I think we're in the top 5, but because of the weather issues, we're used to being in the top 2 or 3. Newport's always up there, and Keene is always up there. And this year, I think we've just been socked with more weather than anybody else. It's coming from New York a lot of nights instead of coming from their area where it doesn't hit us. It smacks us pretty hard. So I think we're in the top 5 still, but hopefully by the end of the year, if we can get a nice weather streak, we'll be back in the top 3 like we normally are. So.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Brian.
Thanks, Anna.
Always good to talk about summer baseball. I love all the releases over the winter. Good. Keeps the eye on the prize for summer baseball. So
thanks for having me in. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
For more of my interview with Brian Gallagher, you can go to our website, www.timesargus.com. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time. And now for more of my conversation with Brian Gallagher. Before we get to the playoffs, which we're all hoping for a good Vermont run, there is an NECBL All-Star game. Talk about when we're going to know who from Vermont is going to be participating in that and where it is this year.
Yeah, this year we hosted it last year and had luckily a great weather day, and crowd came out. We had to skip the woodchuck doing his skydiving in, and it was a great day for Vermont. We had the MVP of the game was a kid that played for us last year, and we had several players that did well in the skills competition. So this year it's in Laconia, New Hampshire, which is not far. It's our closest road game, 2 hours away. So hopefully fans will travel to Laconia and watch the game and support the Mountaineer players there. I think we're going to hopefully have a good representation of players this year. Usually the coaches will get on a conference call on the 13th, this coming Saturday, and have the conversation and basically pick the team. They all talk about it and discuss it. Your second baseman, my second baseman, and they get down to a debate, and if it comes down to a vote and it's close, they start talking numbers and what the players meant to their team and those type of things. So those results should be out soon after that meeting on the 13th. Usually the league waits and puts it all together in a press release and releases it like that following Monday.
And is it like the professional sports where the coaches with the best records get to coach the teams?
Yes, the coach that has the best record going into that game from our division, if Joe Brown happens to have the best record at that point, he would be the coach of the West, and if the Newport coach happened to be there, he would be the coach of the East. So it's, sometimes in Major League Baseball, I know they do the World Series winners from the previous year, and I know that we used to do it that way, and now they do it this way because sometimes those coaches aren't there the next year. You know? So this way, you can always get a current coach in. So.
And part of our other conversation, we talked about what you guys do right, and one of my most favorite stories of my whole 7 years here with the paper was the story I wrote about your host family program. Talk about that and how it helps the organization, and how the kids like it, how the host families like it.
It's really a big job. The person that does the host families this year is Maria Duggan, and she's actually in her first year doing it. Erica Holm did it for many years, Brandy Palmbar, but they've all done a great job of actually getting good quality host families from the local area. We try not to get too far away, like 12 miles is good, because if a guy's getting back at 2 o'clock in the morning, they have to drive to their host family's house and they're tired. So, but the biggest thing is we've been able to get some really solid host families that have been with us for 11 years. There's a few families that come to mind. The one that I think about most often is Fred Stone and Nancy Andrioletti. They've hosted 2 players for 11 straight years. So 22 players in your house over that stretch. And I always tell the guys that jokingly, if they have them, they're going to probably get to the major leagues, because they had Christian Friedrich, Darren Mastriani, and many other players that have played pro ball. And they're just great people, and they welcome them in just like their own family. They keep in touch. They get cards for Christmas. They get phone calls on birthdays. These guys keep in touch. I know Fred and Nancy have been down to many, going to Fenway Park when the players come in and they're playing there. So it's just a fun experience for them. And I think the host families, at least the feedback I get is that, they enjoy having a player there. They come to the ballpark and watch their games and, get to know their families when they come up for the summer. And it's a win for everybody. If they have young kids, we give them free baseball camps. They get season tickets. So it's a good thing for them. They can come down to the ballpark and really feel like they're part of the team. We host picnics during the year. So that's been a program that's had a lot of success. And even though every year we always put the signs out, because we always have a little bit of turnover, we've never had a year where we haven't had host families enough for the players. And I think that's a testament to all the people in Central Vermont that open their houses up. And really, without the host families, we would not be an attractive place to play, because players don't want to live in the dorms. I mean, some teams put players in college dormitories, and they'd spend their whole year in the dorm for the most part. They don't want to spend their summer there. So I think the host family program is huge.
And Brian from Rutgers, the last couple of years, he talked about how much he loved to go fishing with his host family. Talk about what the kids do with them when they're not playing for you guys.
There's been different things. Some host families go down to Fenway on a day off, or even just go fishing or do different events with them. I know like a lot of kids play Little League Baseball, so those kids, the Mountaineer players, will go to the games and support them. So the shoe's on the other foot. He's there cheering them on during their Little League game, as opposed to them coming to the Mountaineers cheering them on for one of our games. So it is a pretty deep bond, and they get invited to, hopefully most of the nights the families are, when they're having dinner, the players are there eating with them. And if they're on the road, which they are most of the time, either home or away, the families come down to the ballpark and kind of have dinner down there and support the team. But I think that's one of our highlights, is the fact that we've had such good community support. Is, you go to communities like Holyoke, Mass, it's so huge, and it doesn't seem to be the same atmosphere with host families, or people open their house up here for free, whereas down there they struggle to get people into dorms, and people want money to host their kids, and they just, organizations just don't have the funds to be able to support that. So it's definitely a nice thing.
And we talked earlier about the pro players, but there's also been a couple of famous faces up in that press box from time to time too. And I know Jim Cott has been up there a fair amount tell us about how his connection to the Mountaineers and.
Well, I met him in Cooperstown, I think 3 summers ago, and I go there every year to the induction weekend and just have for many years. And I saw him, and at the time I just met him and talked to him for a few minutes and talked to him about the team, but he wasn't living in Vermont. He was down in Florida, but he married somebody from Vermont in 2009, and they have their summer home up here now in southern Vermont. So then I contacted him once I found that out and said, I met you, and I sent him a picture of the 2 of us in Cooperstown that he signed for me and stuff, which I thought was kind of cool. And he said, yeah, I'd like to come up, it'd be great to meet the players. So we brought him up, had Jim Cott night at the ballpark. He threw out the first pitch. He got on our broadcast with our broadcaster and announced a couple innings, which was a big thrill for him. And then he met with the players at the Capitol Plaza, talked to him about pitching, and they picked his brain. I told him yesterday when he came up, and I just said, this guy's got 50 years of baseball knowledge, not only from 25 years in the majors, but he's been a broadcaster for 25 years and knows the game inside and out. So they were asking him questions about current players that he talks to all the time and what they're really like, and they were asking about how pitching's changed over the last several years since he's been in the game. And he was great. He was showing him how Whitey Ford showed him how to throw a curveball and what the grip that Whitey Ford was using and what he had success with and how he threw his fastball. And so he gave him lots of tips that they wouldn't get from just listening to a major league broadcast, that was hands-on, that he was showing them, putting their fingers on the ball and saying, this is what I do. And so, it was pretty cool. So he was a great guy, and he seems to be very interested in coming back every year. The league wants to honor him this year at their Hall of Fame dinner in Newport, and they've given him the same award they gave Robin Roberts, who spent 8 years as a board member up here, and it's the Stand-Up Guy Award. So you're coming up on his own time as a volunteer to help our organization for appearances, helping our players out. So they wanted to honor him this year, which I think he's going to be able to attend that event. So.
And the public can attend your hot stove banquet. It's every January,
February?
January.
January.
Talk a little bit about that, and it's a good kickoff for
yeah,
the season.
It's really the way we kick off the season in January. We have our hot stove banquet. We had about 200 people last year. We had Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad and Revolution as a speaker, as an actor. He's a huge baseball fan, came up. He's really good friends with the founder of our league, who's an Emmy Award-winning producer-director. So the connection was there through the movie business, and he came and did a great job. He talked more about baseball than he did about acting, although people were asking him questions about the acting, and he was so down to earth, taking pictures with everybody all night. And we had Buster Only came up from ESPN, and he's a Vermonter. So it was a nice banquet. And it's, again, you're thinking about the Vermont winters. In January, you're sick of winter, you're ready for spring, and kicking off that event is a fun way to start the season. So.
And the kids are very involved in the community, not just with the baseball camps, not just with their host families.
Right.
Talk about some of the other projects that they do during the summer.
Yeah, we've had 2 kind of favorite projects. We worked with the Vermont Food Bank over the last several years and go down there and help package boxes for one morning where the guys are putting together hundreds and hundreds of boxes. It's almost like a competition to see how many boxes they can fill and stack them up to the ceilings and get out of there, almost like beat the previous year record type of thing. And we also have been really big with Heaton Woods and nursing home visits. We've had a great time going there. We went to Heaton Woods this year again for I think the 5th or 6th straight year, and we have breakfast with the residents. So the players are sitting, they have a big circle, and the players are sitting next to some of the residents, and they're talking baseball and talking about where they're from. And it's cool because you get people that say, I used to play college baseball and I was a big Tigers fan, and so there's a person that's 90 years old talking to a 20-year-old, and they have something in common, and it's pretty cool. And we get on the nice days, we get wiffle ball bats, and we play out back with them. The residents will come up in a wheelchair, and the players will push them up, and they'll hit off a tee, and then one of the Mountaineer players will run the bases for them. So they hit, and the players run, and then you got the Mountaineers fielding and throwing each other out. So it's a fun thing, and we even played indoors this year with the rain. We had a little batting practice, and they'd hit the ball, and the players were out there just kind of trying to catch them and stuff. And so it is fun to be able to give back to the community. And every night we have a 50-50 for a different charity, and it goes to the charity and the person that wins it. And a lot of times people donate all the money back to the charity, which is nice to see. I don't think you see that in a lot of other places, turning over $100, $150 to a charity, after you win. It's pretty neat to see. So. Absolutely.
And this community is very lucky to have you guys. We're fortunate at the paper to be able to spend our summers with you, and I want to thank you again for joining us here on Sports Talk.
Well, thanks, Anna. I appreciate all your positive coverage, and it's been a fun run for sure. So,
thank you. Us too.
Thanks.
Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you guys next time.